Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dissecting Dance, Kicking It with Ren podcast, the podcast that opens up discussions about topics in dance. The goal of this podcast is to allow dancers and non dancers alike to think about dance from new perspectives, as well as leaving room for discussion. Enjoy the show. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dissecting Dance, Kicking It with Ren podcast. My name is Ren. We have a special guest on the podcast today. I know it's been a while since I've uploaded anything, but we're back in action. Liz, say hi.
Hi, nice to see you.
Good to see you too. I guess we can start out with an introduction. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, yeah. My name is Elizabeth Higgins. I go by Liz, and I am currently serving as professor and coordinator of dance at Howard Community College. And I've had the good fortune to meet Ren as they have danced in the HCC Dance Company, which I also serve as artistic director of the company.
Yay. Awesome. So we're still in introduction mode. In every podcast, or in every episode, I like to spice it up with a little fun fact. And I think this is a true fun fact, or maybe it's not even a fun fact. Maybe it's just a fact. I don't know. But fun fact is that in order to teach in a higher education level, you need your master's degree. At least to be full-time, you need your master's degree. I think that's right. I heard that somewhere.
Yes, that's correct. And it's not just a master's degree, it's a terminal degree, which sounds kind of ominous, but meaning that it's the final degree that you can get in the field. So depending upon whether you're interested in teaching performance and choreography based dance or more theoretical, critical theory, history, for that, you'd need a PhD. Because for folks who follow that line in their educational trajectory, they do an MA in dance, a Master of Arts. And an MA in dance is not a terminal degree. So then you need to go on and do the PhD to complete it. Whereas for performance and choreography, the Master of Fine Arts is the terminal degree, meaning it's the highest level you need to get, at least for teaching in a higher education institution, as you mentioned. Not to say some people don't still go on and do the EDD or PhD. But yeah, so that's the degree that I received with the intention of teaching in higher ed. So it has served me well.
It seems like it has. I mean, you're in higher ed now, so that's
Yes.
Good. So yeah, fun fact. I would say it was a fun fact. I didn't know all that information, so that's good to know.
It is. It's important. I think a lot of people who are interested in dance and are starting out in the career, the first big decision they make is, oh, do I go to college for dance or just go out into the field professionally? I think the answer is both are very valuable. You know, having that professional experience really gives you a context for what it is that you're doing and the actual experience so that you can eventually share that with your students or your dancers. I also value education highly as somebody who has a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and is now a teacher in higher education. I do believe quite strongly in it. I think giving yourself the opportunity to understand all the aspects of dance as a field, not just what you do in the studio, but also the cultural context, the historical context. If you're somebody who's interested in creating dance, choreographing, then having the basis in music and improvisation and choreography is critical, and really understanding the theory behind all that. There are many different ways, of course, to create work and to create dance. So it's really interesting to explore all the different styles and from modern to postmodern to 21st century and beyond.
Oh yeah, and especially being a part of the HCC Dance Company, I feel plug.
Thank you.
I feel like I've gone. That was probably one of the most fascinating bits, is just learning how professionals in the industry each choreograph, and me being in college and currently learning what my style is in choreography. I feel like learning all the tools is really important, and knowing that everyone has their own method of choreographing, and it's just kind of my opinion, finding the one that's best for you.
And that's exactly why I love that vehicle. For folks who have danced in our company at Howard Community College, or if students or dancers have an opportunity to do something like that in a repertory based company, meaning you're doing the works of several different choreographers, you get to experience not just the actual different dance styles and techniques, but as you mentioned, the different ways in which choreographers create work, what their creative process is. Some people use more improvisation, and they come in with an image or an idea, and they ask the dancers to do a lot of the work collaboratively, where you're actually coming up with the movement phrases and material. Other choreographers, as you've probably experienced, come in and 5, 6, 7, 8, they have it all prepared, and they're just kind of putting it on you or teaching it to you. And both methods are perfectly valid and challenging in their own ways. And I think discovering what you like to do as a dancer is important, because that way you can find work that you gel well with and that you're satisfied with, and you feel is also utilizing your talents really well.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is what is yours? How do you like to choreograph?
It's kind of funny. I think it's changed over the years. I think I did start more as the type of choreographer who came in with prepared material. Not that I didn't always incorporate improvisation, because I did. And I always have drawn from the artists that I'm working with and asked them to bring themselves to the work. So I like dancers to be themselves within even the phrase work that I give. But then I've also found, as the years have gone on, that I really enjoy kind of making movement in the moment. And sometimes I design it with the dancers. I kind of improvise and throw material out there. And then I kind of ask them to show me what they saw. And they give it back, right? It's like, oh, did you see? Some people are more connected to the energy. They may have picked up on the energy of the movement. Somebody else may have picked up on the shape of the movement or the direction in space. So that's interesting to me, because I can show a few people the same phrase and get very different interpretations. And then we can kind of shape it together. Or maybe I allow them each to do it in their own way. So I think I've become more and more interested in that process as time's gone on, where I get to hear more of the dancer's voice and the other artist's voice, and it becomes more collaborative.
And collaboration is fun.
Yes.
Because I love an open discussion in the choreographic process. I love that. I mean, as a choreographer, I love it. As a dancer, I'm still getting used to it.
Yeah, it's always different to be on one side of the coin or the other. The person leading the room or the person who's trying to follow.
Yeah.
And it's great that you mentioned that, because it might be that you like one style as a choreographer and a different style as a dancer. That's possible as well.
Absolutely. And I think that, like, with dance especially, there are so many different elements to it that people don't talk about. Like, you can teach, you can be a choreographer, you can be a dancer. Most likely you have to do more than one in the industry. But there's a lot more that comes with it. And I feel like each different style, like whether you're dancing or choreographing, is its own art form.
Absolutely. Yeah. And not everybody likes all the different aspects of it. It sounds like you're somebody who does appreciate, performance and choreography. And obviously the fact that you're doing this podcast means you're interested in also hearing the stories behind the movement and what brings people to the art form, which is why I think you're probably drawn to education, where you kind of have the opportunity to explore all of those things. But there are some people who, really just want to dance. They just want to be on that stage performing, and they live for it, and they're great at it. And that's really where they want to go. And then you have other people who really aren't that interested in that side of it. They might just want to teach. They love watching other people learn and just sharing that artistry with their students. Then you have the folks who it's all about the creative vision, and they just want to see their creative visions come to life. And then I would kind of categorize myself as somebody who enjoys all of it. And I guess as I decided I wanted to build a lifelong career in dance, I realized I would need all of those skills and would have a lot more opportunity if I was open to doing all of those things. But I do have friends who had phenomenal performing careers and then went back to school or transitioned and went into an entirely different field, and just kind of, they wanted to perform and then they wanted to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Absolutely. That's so interesting.
it is, because it kind of says something, I guess, about who you are and what speaks to you and how you communicate, right? Because being on stage is a method of communication. Teaching is obviously a method of communication, and so is choreography.
Yeah, and then you can like go into specific, like for teaching, you can go into like different theories on like how to teach. What's the best way to teach a group of dancers?
Absolutely,
Which
yeah.
is a
There's different
whole,
styles of
which is like
teaching,
a
different.
whole other thing.
Absolutely. And then also teaching different age groups, right? Some people love teaching kids
Mm-hmm.
or teens or college students or adults, whatever it may be, professionals. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to know how you like, how did you get to the um words
Where I
words.
am, just to where I am. Absolutely. Yeah. It's not a linear path always in dance. So I think that's an important thing for people starting out in the field to understand. It's not like law or being a doctor, medicine, where it's a clearer path of, I'm going to do my residency, or, these steps along the way. So you have to decide how you're going to design that and be open to all the possibilities along the way. So I think the first dance class I took, I was 8 years old, and it just hit me like a bolt of lightning, where I thought, this is what I want to do. This is really what I want to do. And I was a good academic student in school, so I had other opportunities. So I always like to say that, just because it is a choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just like, oh, well, dance was the only thing I liked and was good at, because actually I liked a lot of different things and I was interested in a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I really just love dance more than all of those other things.
Mm-hmm.
So I studied hard, and when it came time to apply for colleges, at first my parents weren't too keen on the idea of me majoring in dance, because they were wanting me to have a stable
Mm-hmm.
income, lifestyle, understandable. So I only auditioned for one school, which was Mason Gross School of the Arts at Rutgers University. All the rest of the schools that I chose were very strong academic schools that also had some kind of dance program.
Mm-hmm.
So my goal was just to stay dancing in one way or another. Um, but then I found out I got into Mason Gross School of the Arts, and I knew that was what I wanted to do. And my parents gave in and supported the decision. And I got some academic scholarships, and it was a state school, and I lived in New Jersey. So it was much more reasonable than a lot of the other schools I had applied to. So that didn't
Yeah.
hurt. And it was a great experience. They had a BA and a BFA, but for me, I really wanted the BFA. I felt like I hadn't had that kind of professional training that I would need to be a dancer professionally. So I felt like I needed to focus
Mm-hmm.
and really train hard, which is what I did. And I also had for me, my goal was to move to New York City and dance professionally and tour internationally.
Mm-hmm.
That much I knew I wanted to do. And then I figured I would go back to school after that and decide if I was going to have a dance company or teach in higher ed. That was my long range plan.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm fortunate that it actually kind of happened that way. So I moved into New York City, started auditioning, got a job pretty soon thereafter. Was a paid gig, weekly salary, not 52 weeks a year, but at least it was a place to
Yeah.
start. So I built around that. I found other freelance dance gigs that fit in with that schedule. I started teaching a couple nights a week, which I could get subs when I would go out of town on tour. Eventually, I got more paid dance work. The whole time I was showing my own choreography as well. I was doing some shared concerts. And I did that for almost 10 years in New York City, where I danced with different companies. I eventually danced with the Murray Lewis and Nicolai Dance Theater, which
Mm-hmm.
was a great opportunity because I got to travel again internationally. I'd done some of that with other companies I'd worked with. I'd been down to South America, Central America, over to Europe several times, around the United States, got to dance at the Kennedy Center and the Joyce Theater in New York. So a lot of dreams came true during that period. Amazing. And I was always interested in choreography. So I also loved working with all these different choreographers to see how they made dances and how they worked. And then as a dancer, I got to perform and train in all these different styles of dance, sort of within that contemporary modern genre. But I did, for example, work with a choreographer named Nicholas Rodriguez, and he was of Puerto Rican descent. So I learned salsa while I was with him, and he incorporated Latin forms into his movement and theater work. And it kind of went on from there. Each choreographer has something special that makes them unique. So I really appreciated hearing all those voices and kind of embodying that work. And then after 10 years of all that, well, during that process, I started my own company, and I did a season at what was formerly known as Joyce Soho, which was a subsidiary kind of the Joyce. And it was amazing. And I was on that, mountain, having to decide which way to go. Do I stay in New York City and build this dance company? Do I go back to grad school? I was in my early 30s, and I felt like if I didn't go then, it was going to just get a little bit more difficult to go back to school. So I made that choice to kind of put my company on hold, and I got a full ride to go down to Florida State, which is the beautiful thing. If you have a professional career, often there are programs who really value that professional experience and will give you some great scholarships to go back to school. So that's what happened. That was another reason why I was willing to live in New York, is that it was going to be free. And Florida State was an amazing program, and they gave me a lot of opportunity there and a lot of artistic freedom, which I appreciated. So I moved down to Tallahassee, which was a big shift from New York City, and was able to afford a nice 1-bedroom apartment and a car while I was going to grad school, which was lovely. And yeah, I got a School of Visual Arts and Dance fellowship the first year. So I got free tuition and a stipend, and I had to teach 3 courses over the course of the year, which also gave me more teaching experience at the higher ed level, which was great. And then the second year, I became a university fellow, which gave me free tuition, a larger stipend, and I did not have to teach at all. I could just focus on my research. And that is when I really got to develop my master's thesis concert, which brought me really deeply into my choreography. And I invested in technology and integrated a lot of different elements that I was really interested in, some theater work as well. It was just a great experience. It was a great experience. And then after that, I applied for jobs all over the country in academia, and I got a job back in New York City, which was interesting because that's exactly where I had come from. So it was tenure track position, which is a big deal, at Marymount Manhattan College, which is an excellent dance program. So I moved back up to New York and worked there for 3 years full time. Went really well. I was a personal choice when I left that job, just simply because I was starting a family and felt like I needed more time at home. So at that point, I downshifted and I adjunct at Manhattanville College, which is up in Westchester, New York. I did some choreography, freelance choreography for Sarasota Contemporary Dance, formerly known as Fusion Dance Artists, which is down in Sarasota, Florida. A former colleague of mine from grad school had started a company and invited me to work with her. And I did some other freelance gigs, teaching master classes. Then my husband's job brought me down here to Maryland. And 1 year later, I connected with Howard Community College and have been there since. So I'm in my,
Woohoo.
Yes, I think this is my 11th year there. I can't believe yes, thank you. Made it. So you never know where life is going to bring you, and all of the training you get and all the experiences you gather will serve you in some way, shape, or form. And you just have to kind of trust that and believe that even the experiences you don't love as much, you learn from, whether it's you learn that that's not what you want to do, or it just expands you and helps you deepen your own vision. whatever it may be. So as long as you stay true to what your mission is, I think it all comes together.
That's so cool. That's a lot of experience.
Yeah. As you get older, you get more and more.
No, that's awesome. I had a question about New York and I'm trying to remember it.
Yeah.
How were you able to find auditions in New York?
That's something I'm interested in finding out for my own students now, because back when I was auditioning, literally you'd go take class at different professional dance studios and there would be a bulletin board and auditions would be posted on the bulletin board. That was one way I found them. And then there were newspapers that Backstage, the Village Voice, which I don't even know if it exists anymore. And they had a section for auditions and dance reviews. So once a week, came out on Wednesdays, you'd pick it up and you immediately check out what auditions were happening for the week. Backstage, those auditions were a little bit more geared towards Broadway. So I didn't find as much in there, but I did go to a couple of those. So more often I was following the Village Voice because I was sort of in the downtown dance scene and the modern scene. The bulletin boards, word of mouth. Two of the jobs I got recommended for through other positions, right? I was dancing for somebody and then they were good friends with another choreographer and she lost a dancer because her dancer was pregnant and couldn't do the season. So then she invited me to start working with her and I wound up working with her for another 5 years, dancing in her company and becoming her rehearsal director. Then when it came for the Nikolai Lewis audition, it was a private audition. One of my former professors from my undergrad, Claudia Gittleman, had come to see a performance of mine. I was showing my own choreography in the Downtown Arts Festival down in Soho, which happened every year. And I showed work in that festival for like 5 years. And all of a sudden, one year, there was Claudia Gittleman. I hadn't seen her for 5 or 6 years since I graduated from college. And she said, "Oh, let's go get some coffee and tea and talk about what you've been doing." And I told her about everything I'd done. And she was very pleasantly surprised that I was still working fully in the field. And then within a month, I got a call from her telling me that Murray Lewis had lost a dancer pretty late in the game. He had a Joyce season 6 weeks later. And would I be interested in taking a private audition? Which of course I was. And that's how I started with that company. So it's important that you put yourself out there and you take opportunities, even if you're like, well, this doesn't pay much and I'm worried about this or that. If you can make it happen, get yourself in the studio, get yourself on the stage, talk to people, network, because one job often leads to another and one opportunity kind of leads to another. Same thing with teaching, right? You teach a master class at one studio, then all of a sudden, oh, I gave your name to somebody else. They're looking for a teacher. Do you know if you're available? And somehow all the connections come together.
That's really cool. Yeah. I know it's probably a little different now, given the interwebs.
Absolutely. I do hope there is a digital repository for auditions the way there used to be.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah. I haven't explored it a whole lot because I'm very busy with my job. But I really do want to hear more about how dancers are finding auditions these days so that I can help my students with that. So you can keep me posted as you do your research.
Yes. I will snoop around a little bit.
Sounds good.
But yeah,
I know one other thing I will say is another way dancers often get jobs is going to intensives, right? A company will often offer an intensive, 5-day summer intensive or winter intensive. And sometimes obviously it's a way for them to earn income and to spread the word about their own company, but they're also often looking for dancers. So if you go to the intensive, they get to see you over 5 days, let's say, rather than a 2-hour audition or a 3-hour audition, 4-hour audition, which gives them a lot more information. They see that you show up consistently, that you're working hard. They get to really see your dance style. Maybe they see you working with some of their own company members if their company members are participating in the intensive. And so that's another good way for dancers to look for work, is to try to put themselves out there in different training formats.
Got it. That's good to know. That's so cool.
Yeah.
um, I mean, I'm trying to function brain. It's early. It's like
I
10, 11
know.
a.m.
Early
And
in the end of the semester, so we're all a
yeah.
little.
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. It's almost the end of the semester. I
Yes, it is. I'm right there with you, believe me. Uh,
So, I mean,
yes.
I have so in your I'm sure the master's programs everywhere are all different, but I want to
Hmm.
hear about how your experience getting your master's, your MFA was different than getting your BFA. Like how was it different?
Yeah. Well, you've mentioned something really important, that each program is different,
Hmm.
right? It depends upon who's the director of the program, who the faculty members are, what resources they have. Are they focusing on a particular style of dance or technique, or are they trying to give you a lot of different experiences? When I went to Mason Gross School of the Arts for my undergrad, there were a lot of Nikolai Lewis teachers there at the time. But I did get to study Limon technique, Cunningham technique, ballet, jazz. I did some Afro-Brazilian, a Spanish dance. So I did get a lot of experiences, but there was a bit of a heavier emphasis on the Nikolai Lewis technique, which served me well later
Hmm.
because I wound up getting into the company as a result of that. Um, Whereas when I went to Florida State, they did have certain techniques they wanted everybody to have, but they also wanted to give you a large range of experiences.
Hmm.
Um, and as a graduate student, the emphasis is placed more heavily on choreography. I knew for myself as a returning professional, at the later part of my performing career, I was looking to transition and not have performance be my primary source of income and the primary focus of my career. I wanted to move towards teaching and choreography full time and then do
Hmm.
some performing. So it allowed me to get more pedagogy. I was exposed to dance technology and the use of it. I learned more about the theories behind critical race theory, gender theory, all these different lenses through which we see dance and make dance, and view dance, which was really interesting. I had excellent teachers. I got to work with Jawale Willa Jo Zoller, who was the founding artistic director of Urban Bush Women. I actually got to work with Suzanne Farrell, was on faculty. Um, uh, Linda Davis, who's since retired, but another amazing soul. Anjali Austin, just goes on and on with the
Hmm.
different. Tim Glenn, who had also danced with the Nikolai Company and was an expert in dance technology. Um, so just a lot of great influences, and really the colleagues that I made. I would say that's another thing. Your friends are always important.
Hmm.
Um, but then when you get to the master's level, you're really collaborating deeply with your colleagues and learning from them, sharing ideas. They become connections that you possibly work with later on. I met Lemus Bolaños Wilmot there, who is the artistic director of Sarasota Contemporary Dance. She started her own company, and I did work with her. So those connections are deep and very
Hmm.
important. I would say that where you choose to go to school has to be a good fit artistically. Obviously, the resources, if you are looking for scholarship or partial scholarship, that's going to influence your decision. Um, and then also geography, right? When I went to Florida, I tapped into the Florida dance scene, and I got offered a couple of positions down in Florida and almost stayed down there, because you build connections wherever you go. So if there's a place you're interested in living or you really like the dance scene there, that might be another reason to choose a master's program in a particular city or place geographically. If you're like, I really want to live in a warm climate, then you might want to pick a school in a warm climate or something like that. Or if you are interested in commercial dance, maybe you want to be in LA. If you're interested in right? A particular jazz, right? Started in Chicago, big jazz emphasis in Chicago originally. So it might be all different kinds of things that lead you to where you want to be.
Nice. Gotcha. So like the networking factor is definitely important. Like you're saying it's more important, especially when you're getting your master's degree versus when you're getting your bachelor's degree. Do I?
I think they're actually important for both. I
Mm-hmm.
think networking is a big part of dance. I always say that to my students. I always say, be nice to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Not only because it makes you feel good as a person, but because you never know where you're going to run into somebody again, where you're going to end up working together again. So it's really important that you treat people with respect and that you try to develop bonds and connections. Be open to different people and different ways of working. It just creates more opportunity, right? If you're like, well, I only like to do this and I only like to work with these kinds of people and blah, 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 you're really limiting yourself
Mm-hmm.
to opportunity. So making those connections, staying open, I think starts right away in your undergrad. Or if you're not going to school, then when you go out and take classes in the community, talk to people, make friends. Oh, did you hear there's an audition next week,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's how I would find out about things too, just word of mouth through other people. And if they like you, they're more willing to help you out and
Mm-hmm.
share information. I see that all the time with my own students, which I love, that uh, they support each other and they share and they help each other out, which is
Mm-hmm.
a much better way of being rather than that kind of competitive nature where everybody's trying to just take care of themselves. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I,
And that's what I mean, my favorite part about dance is like the just talking to people. Well, one, talking to people about dance, which is why I have a podcast about it. uh,
good move.
but
Smart move.
but I do also love like the collaboration feature of
Mm-hmm.
it and just seeing how this idea of how everybody moves their bodies in their own way, which HCC does a good job of like being that represent like having that character to it. Just everyone moves in a different movement style, and every movement style should be embraced.
Totally agree with you. That's one of the things I love about HCC also is diversity and inclusion, which I'm on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee for several years. I've been on that
Mhm.
committee, and I joined that committee because I believe in it. I've learned a lot from it. Not that we're not all always growing and learning and need to be better at that,
Mhm.
at being more inclusive and more understanding of other people. Um, so I feel like that's an area where I am excited that I've seen, been able to grow and learn on my own. And I kind of bring that back to the dance program because we have such diverse array of students, different
Mhm.
ages, different levels of training and experience, different ways of thinking and learning, on top of race, gender, all the things that people
Mhm.
associate with diversity. I've now realized that diversity is a much bigger, broader umbrella. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, so that's been wonderful, and our community brings in such a diverse array of students that it's constantly challenging me as a teacher
Mhm.
to bring all these people into the same room and help guide them to the next level despite all their different experiences that they're bringing in and learning styles. So I would say, um, even though I've taught at other institutions where the quote unquote level of training might be higher, I find this a much more enriching and challenging teaching
Mhm.
experience to be at Howard Community College. And we pride ourselves in the program and at the institution on allowing room for all these different voices and
Mhm.
valuing the different voices. And as a result, I've seen people that you might not, I've seen people flourish in ways that I wouldn't have even thought possible. So again, that's been a big learning curve for me, in teaching such a diverse range of students that I really appreciate. Yeah.
I mean, being someone who's known you for the past couple of years, you're doing great.
Oh,
There's,
thanks. That's really good to hear, because you never know how your students feel about what you're doing.
Yeah.
So
I mean, there's a reason why I come back, or at least try to. This year,
yes.
unfortunately, I could not, but
Well, it sounds like you're
I'll be,
doing some amazing things yourself.
yeah, yeah. But I'll try to come back next year.
You're
Depending
always
on,
welcome. Yeah, you're
thank
always
you.
welcome.
Thank you. Depending on where life
Doors
takes me, I'll do my best.
You're one of those examples of a person who works hard, is great to work with, and there you go. As a result, the opportunity is there for you and the door is open.
Absolutely. You just have to, you know, be a good person and talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know that when I cast, coming from the choreographer's perspective, I choreographed, how many works did I choreograph? I think 3 at my current institution. And I've learned that, some tab opened on my computer. Okay.
Technology.
Technology, yeah. I mean, I've learned, well, first off, my choreographic styles were all different as in all my pieces. But I've learned very quickly that the connections you make, it's so much better to work with people who want it versus like looking for the overly talented people.
I agree.
So
I
much
agree.
better. Like, I
Yep.
mean, yeah, there are people in the dance world who are so good, but are so snobby and just think that they're
Yeah.
better than everyone else.
Right.
And
And that's hard to work with when you're in the
mhm,
studio and you're trying to figure things out on your own as a choreographer. You want people who are open and supportive and non-judgmental.
yeah,
You don't want somebody who's sort of looking at you, waiting for you to prove yourself to them,
right.
because that sort of can instill, self-doubt, self-judgment, which is the last thing you need when you're trying to create something, right?
Exactly.
You need positivity and support.
Positivity and support. And I've been very lucky to have I I I've been very lucky with my like castings and such to have like just overall good people who are open and really
Yeah.
just want to dance. And really that's all I want.
Yes. And when the more you get to know humans and
Hmm.
people, the better you can be, you can assess that even in a
Hmm.
short-term audition situation. Watch the way they're treating other people in the audition. Are they respectful
Yeah.
when in their feedback and their questioning of
Hmm.
you? Or, it becomes evident.
Yeah.
Um, do they listen when you give them feedback? Are they open to suggestions, or do they think they already know how to do it
Right.
perfectly? Yeah.
I feel like
So the
that
more you can
yep.
see that, yeah. Go ahead, sorry.
No, you're good. I feel like that's why a lot of auditions are like in a class format too.
Mm-hmm.
That it I feel like that makes a lot of sense.
It gives
Yeah.
it a structure that people are familiar with, so they can
Hmm.
feel a little bit more relaxed. And then on top of that, yeah, you can see their working style over a longer period of time.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I have another question about your like MFA stuff.
Yeah.
I find that particularly like interesting. So what was your course load like being an MFA student?
That was a while ago. Let me think about that. I think I had approximately 4 courses each semester. I believe that was right. Um, but yeah, I needed 60 credits to complete the degree. So there was some summer course material that I did as well. That program was still at that time geared for performance and choreography. So they wanted us to take a lot of technique. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't as interested in that at the time because I had already danced professionally. So I kind of got them to agree that I could cut back on some of the technique so I could take other things that I was interested in, like the dance technology work.
Mm-hmm.
So I really appreciated the fact that they were flexible and open to that idea. And so I did take ballet and modern, all different styles. I took courses in composition. I took a course in directing, which I thought I knew everything about, which I learned so much. I was so wrong. So I'm glad they made me take that. I took a course in visual design and kind of stagecraft oriented,
Mm-hmm.
designing for costumes, lights, etc. a pedagogy course, talking about how you teach and objectives behind designing lessons and units and courses, writing history and theory behind dance. And then I did independent studies. I saw, since I was able to shift out of some of the technique, instead I inserted dance technology courses, which now I think is part of their curriculum. But that was just getting started when I got there. And I wanted to take advantage of it. So I was able to just do some independent studies with Tim Glenn. And I filtered that work into my master's thesis concert. I, used edited digital video that I filmed and edited myself, and projected and learned about all of that, which I could use another lesson in that again. But it was amazing. And yeah, I just felt like the opportunities were limitless. And now they have down there the Maggie LSC National Center for Choreography. That hadn't started. I wish it had. It started right after I graduated, but there's a lot of resources they have down there. So still a good place to go, but there's so many good programs all over the country and internationally. I have some friends who've studied at the Laban. There's a lot of different routes you can take.
You cut off at Laban. Can you?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I thought you froze up there for a second.
It's okay.
But yes, I have friends who also went abroad for their master's degrees. I went to the Laban Institute. So there's not one way to do this, right? You got to follow your own path and follow your interests and see where it leads you.
Absolutely. Talking about myself, Laban movement analysis, so interesting. So interesting. I actually went to the Rutgers intensive back in my senior year of high school. I did not get into the BFA program. I was sick. Wah wah. Yeah. But one of the things that really stood out to me was like the Laban movement analysis. And I just wanted to say that because Laban, such a nerd.
I absolutely love it. I studied a year of that during my undergrad at Rutgers. We did more notation based the first semester, and then movement analysis the second semester. That informed my work tremendously and still does. Because I love looking at the quality of movement, the intersection of time and energy is of great interest to me, and how that expresses humanity. Yeah.
Yes, humanity. That's a big one.
And I feel like Laban is a scientific way of codifying
dance science.
Yes, humanity. Oh, that's another thing. I studied anatomy and kinesiology during my undergrad. So all of these things have been extremely useful. I don't think there was one course I took that I felt wasn't useful. Music has always been a huge part for me. I studied piano and voice growing up. I loved music. I had to take a year or a year and a half of music during my undergrad. And then I voluntarily took music history and music theory in addition. So I wound up, having about 2.5 years of music training during my undergrad. And now I teach, when I taught at Marymount, I co-taught a rhythmic notation course for dancers, which again, now I co-teach a music concepts course for dancers that I designed when I got to HCC. So music has been a huge part of my career. Yeah.
Yeah. There's like the multidisciplinary, like it's multidisciplinary. It can really help. I know somebody who's doing their capstone and they're making their own music because they got their associates in music at Howard Community College, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. I might be wrong in that, but yeah, that's a whole different sector too, is like the whole like interdisciplinary factors that come with dance. Like, you know, like art's another one. Maybe you want to have a fun little art background. But you create
Yeah, this
yourself.
you could design projections, you can design costumes if you have that artistic background.
Hmm.
There's nothing again that's wasted.
Absolutely.
Any talents you have can be used, and you can infuse it into your work. You might get other additional work that helps
Hmm.
supplement your dance work to make a living. Right? I always
Hmm.
say that to my students. Every experience and every talent that you have, whether you're good at administrating and organizing and you have technical skills, you could maybe become a company manager, rehearsal
Hmm.
director, or work, helping run a dance studio, or work in the administration of a dance company or a nonprofit. Um, what you're doing right here, right?
Hmm.
Interviewing folks, gathering research. That's another component of the field, as people do uh, write for dance and write books and history and criticism. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's, yeah. Um, Another question.
Yes.
Um, well, out of curiosity, so how did, were you the one who started the HCC Dance Company?
No, that all existed before I got there. When I first got there, it was called the Arts Collective Dance Company. But then the dance program decided to go out on its own and just
Hmm.
have be in charge of its own dance company. So I was there during that transition. And then I didn't become artistic director of the company until about 6 years ago, I think. First, my colleague was the artistic director. I was the assistant artistic
Hmm.
director. And then when she left to take another position down in North Carolina, that's when I took over the company. So it was great because I got to see a little bit of how it was functioning. And then by the time I took it over, I felt confident that I could continue to maintain the quality that existed and
Hmm.
then kind of take it in my own direction.
Awesome. That's really cool. I find I find that fascinating too.
Yeah, how you can serve in different roles for the same
Hmm.
institution or yeah, experience. You teach at a studio, and then someday, who knows, they might say, I'm selling the studio, and you decide to take it over. I've seen that
Yeah.
happen a few times.
So have you taught any other like age groups other than like the college level?
Absolutely. When I was first in New York, I took all kinds of jobs because I needed to make a living
Hmm.
and get all the as much experience as I could.
Hmm.
And so I taught from like 2 year olds to like 92 year olds, basically. Really, honestly, I'm not exaggerating. I did an outreach program for the Center for Modern Dance Education, where I worked in a nursery school, right?
Hmm.
Giving dance classes. I taught at private, the Spence School, which is a very elite private school on the Upper East Side of New York, K through
Hmm.
4. I did a sabbatical fill-in position there. I taught at Professional Perry Dance, which is a studio for professional dancers. I taught at Columbia University, on and on and on. I mean, I did so much teaching, and it really helped me understand where I felt I best fit.
Yeah.
And for me, I that's when I discovered I really wanted to teach at the college level. One of the things I like about teaching at the college level is you get to have students over a long period of time. So you can work on concepts and help bring them from the beginning, through to a much deeper point than when you're at a professional studio. People come, they go, you may never see them again. They may come regularly. They
Hmm.
may, have different goals. When you have people in a college environment, you have a syllabus, you have a trajectory, and you can go more deeply into all these different ideas. And I just love watching the students morph over time and evolve and just make all these discoveries.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking of teaching at the college level,
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to know like how you grade at the college level.
That is another thing that has evolved over time, that
Hmm.
the institution has really encouraged us to use rubrics. So of course, years ago I started creating rubrics, and I still look back and deepen them and
Hmm.
change them and really look at what the goals are, because sometimes I have a different group of students and the goals change, so I have to adapt the rubrics accordingly. For a technique course, there are things like alignment, rotation, spinal articulation, weight transfer, musicality, movement, replication, and decision making. We have a very specific rubric that we've designed at the program. And then when it comes to, let's say, a more creative course like improvisation or composition, then it might be movement innovation, use of space, time, energy, structure and form, choosing music to accompany, the different aspects. For papers, they have their own unique set of rubrics as well, where you're looking at the content and the depth of the research and the grammar and the syntax and the spelling. And so it's really unique for each course, and to each assignment, right? Some assignments require certain goals, and another assignment's entirely different. So that's the academic part of dance that a lot of people don't like, but it does have its value, and it does at least keep things more equitable when you're looking at student work.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. That's been a pretty controversial topic that's been going on right now.
Interesting.
So, well, for me, it's only controversial for me.
I don't think you're the only one. I have a feeling other people might have controversy around that.
I mean, I've had discussions about, like, at the university level, how exactly the grading policies should be. There's the perspective of, like, how is the student doing? Like, it's grading based on, like, how the student is improving. So it's like more of an individual level. But then you have the other side where it's how the student is graded based on accuracy of the movements.
Right.
So there's multiple sides of it, and I just wanted to see what yours was.
Yeah, and I think they're both important. I often don't put movement replication as one of the first parts of my rubric in the semester, because I think at the beginning they're getting used to me. The students are getting used to my teaching style, my style of movement. So at the beginning, I just want to see, if they're getting the general concepts. Then by about midway through the semester, I start incorporating that movement replication and decision-making component to the rubric, because then I feel like, okay, now they're used to my teaching style. I do a lot of repetition. I give them so much opportunity. I film the phrases and put them up on Canvas so that they can be practicing on their own. I give them time to practice together in class. So then I feel like it's fair for me to assess that component as well.
Yeah, especially because you're giving a lot of resources for people to do well. That's perfectly fair.
I mean, I like giving A's. I like it a lot. I feel much better. The more A's I give, the better.
Yes. It makes the students happy too, I promise.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like people are encouraged when they do well. So I try to, not to say I haven't had to give other kinds of grades, but I definitely prefer when I see people succeeding, then I feel like we're all succeeding.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so interesting. Yeah. That was a me being curious question.
Well, that's an important part of teaching, though, is how you teach.
Yeah.
Right. The old school of dance teaching is sort of like the stick versus the carrot, right? Where you break people down to build them back up. And I've been a dancer in those environments. I've taught in institutions that believed in that philosophy. And I eventually came to the point where I realized that's not the way I want to teach. And that's not the way I want to make work. I would prefer to encourage people rather than to punish them.
Yeah. I definitely have gotten exposure to both, and I definitely agree with you.
Yeah.
I'd rather be encouraged than, like, pushed to the limit.
Yeah.
Or even pushed past the limit. Yeah, it just seems a lot better to encourage people.
Yeah, I think people flourish more. I mean, yes, people do need a little push sometimes, but you can do it in an inspiring way rather than in a demoralizing way.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
And I love watching other teachers. I try to model myself after some of the good teachers that I've seen. And currently we have on our faculty some folks that I really respect, because I see them doing that. I see them pushing their students in a positive way. So they're really pushing them to the next level, but they're not breaking down their spirit in the process.
Absolutely. And I feel like in dance, because dance comes from that like very traditional stick, um, I mean, making that shift, I feel, is very important because dance is like an art form. I mean, it is an art form. I don't know why I put the like in there. Dance is an art form, and it's important to like it's important to push, but it's also important to love what you do and to not burn people out while doing that, while in the
Agreed.
process.
I
Yes.
completely agree. But it's been a, lesson for me because I came, when I started, it was dance was a little bit more the former, where it was about pushing beyond your limit and breaking people down and then rebuilding them. And
Hmm.
I think that philosophy has changed in the 21st century. Not everywhere, but I think it's moved in the right direction.
Yeah. I think with the dance world, I like to say it's a model of our government because
Mm-hmm.
because like you have like the major level with like the more elite, well-known companies. But then it kind of branches off into like these I don't know if it branches off. Maybe I'm wording it wrong, but it kind of like goes down to like the smaller companies. And sometimes it starts with the smaller companies um making that shift and then eventually
Yes,
it graduates up to
I
yeah.
think you're right about that. I think that because these smaller startup companies might be younger
Hmm.
and newer, and they don't have to follow preset protocol or institutionalized energy
Hmm.
or tone that's been set. They can just kind of create the energy and the
Hmm.
kind of environment they want to create. Yeah.
Absolutely. Environment plays a much bigger factor than people realize.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. A huge example of that. I don't know if you've been seeing like dance news recently, but I'm trying to remember what dance company it was, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Um, I think it's like there's a company in Syracuse, New York right now, and I think they had to replace all their dancers because all of them protested due to
Wow.
poor work environment. You should look into it.
I will.
I saw it.
I'm
I saw
curious
it
to
on
know.
TikTok, and also I think there was something in Australia, a dance company in Australia too, and it was one of the bigger ones. Um, there are a lot of protests right now just to be treated better professionally, um, which is which is inspiring to say the least.
Definitely.
I've also noticed a huge shift in costuming, um, specifically. Like there's more communication with the dancers when it comes to, what do you feel comfortable wearing? Not what do you want to wear, but what do you feel comfortable wearing? I want to differentiate the two because there's a
Yeah.
difference between not liking it and feeling uncomfortable.
Absolutely. And I do have to say that was not a question that was asked when I was dancing professionally. It was just like,
Hmm.
this is the costume you're wearing. When
Yeah.
some of them I did not feel entirely comfortable in, but yet that time you didn't feel comfortable challenging it either. So
Yeah,
it's great that those things are starting to change.
absolutely. And back then, like, dancers usually aren't able to talk in those kind of
Right.
environments. You're not allowed to talk.
Hmm.
It's like a rule. That's what I've heard. I have limited professional experience.
Well, I think there's a balance between, like you said, if everybody was just like, I don't like to wear this, I don't want to wear that, at a certain point, it's like everybody's not going to like everything. But liking and feeling like you can be yourself and be comfortable in it are two different things.
Yeah. Yeah. We are unfortunately hitting the end of, or we're almost hitting the end. I have one more question for you. um, but this was great.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. It was fun.
Yay. So I guess my last question is, if you were to like give any sort of advice to anybody, whether it would be, teachers like or students or whatever, if you were to give advice to like anybody in the dance community, what kind of advice would you give?
Great question. I think it's most important to listen to yourself. So what that means is try a lot of different things out.
Hmm.
So be open, take all kinds of classes, workshops, auditions, try everything. But
Hmm.
then also reflect and be honest about, is this am I excited about this work? Do I want to go back and do it again? Am I going to learn something from this? Is this where my passion lies? Is this the pathway I want to take? When I first started in New York, I was like, okay, I'll take any work I can get. And then as the couple years went by and I got more work, and I realized I can actually be a little bit selective about this now. And there were a couple of paid opportunities that I said no to because I just didn't, the work was not right artistically for me, or the environment was not right. So I think that would really help people if they can understand that balance between being open to possibility, but then also being somewhat selective on a personal level.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, that's unfortunately the end. The end.
You did a great job. That was a good interview.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This was fun. I love doing this.
Great. You're good at it.
But I'm gonna end it off for the people watching or not watching, listening. Haha.
Yes.
Thank you, all of you for listening. Thank you all for listening to Dissecting Dance, Kicking It with Ren. I hope you all have a great rest of your day and take a nap.
Sounds great.
Take care of yourself. All right. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching this episode of Dissecting Dance, Kicking It with Ren podcast. If you can hear the wonderful background music, those are water bottles. This is your sign that you should relax and drink some water. Anyways, a new episode will be uploaded every other Thursday. Thank you for watching.